Today, I have the great pleasure of speaking with David Dubois, the one and only amazing career in the industry. He's now the CEO, president, and publisher of the Exhibitor Group. We'll be talking about the future of the industry. We'll be talking about workforce, and we'll be talking about what is important when you design a trade show or a meeting. Enjoy the conversation with David Dubois. Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Business of Meeting podcast, and another legend in the industry that I have the great honor and pleasure of speaking with today. He has been an association man for decades and been working with the major one. He just left IAEE and is now the CEO, president, and publisher in that order of the Exhibitor Group. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Mr. David Dubois. David, thank you so much for being here today.
Bonjour. You know how good my French is, Eric. Nice to see you. And it's been a few days since we've been together, and look forward to spending some time with you at IMEX, I think in the next week or so. And
we're recording today, so that'll be broadcast a little after, but yeah.
That's fine. I'm coming to you from Plano, Texas, which is a suburb of Dallas.
The Tesla suburb.
Correct.
David, you have had so far, and you continue to have, a tremendous career. I think people say that cats have 7 lives, and you probably have like 18 lives. It's absolutely phenomenal. I might not tell everyone how we met exactly the first time, but I know exactly when and where it was. You've always been a mentor to me, to many people. You have such a view on the industry, so I'm looking forward to this conversation today. First and foremost, what is your journey?
Well, thank you, Eric. My journey is I had the pleasure of telling my father no thank you when he wanted me to buy his dry cleaning business when I graduated from college. Instead, a friend of mine his family was in the catering business, Eric, and we all wanted to go to Michigan State University together. And John convinced me to look at what was at the time called the hotel school. And today it's called the School of Hospitality Business, which really is a much better kind of positioning, branding. And that's how I got into working for Sheraton and Ritz-Carlton 13 years. And then I won't bore you with my resume, but at the pleasure of 30 years working for PCMA, Professional Convention Management Association, MPI, Meeting Professionals International, Fort Worth Convention and Visitors Bureau, the International Association of Exhibitions and Events, and hopefully this is my last job at the Exhibitor Group. So I've had a blessed career, lots of friends like you that we've gone on this journey together.
That's awesome. And by the way, Michigan State, that's where I did the CMM.
That's right.
Some years ago already. And you've seen all the change in the industry those last 3 decades. When you look at the industry today, and I know you like mentoring also younger professional, what would you say to someone who's considering working in our industry or that's just coming in our industry today?
Well, I'll preface it by saying that you might remember, you're a little younger than me, maybe a month or two. You might remember, Eric, when the internet came about, and we were in the meetings industry together at that time, 25, 30 years ago. And everybody was worried about the fact that, oh my goodness, you're going to be able to do, video meetings, and it's going to hurt the in-person, face-to-face business events industry. And well, that never happened. And look where we are today, where if an organization is not doing 365, 24/7 engagement with their communities, both online and in person in a hybrid environment, they're missing out on a lot of growth opportunities. So what I do is I had the pleasure 2 or 3 times a year, Eric, to go to hotel school, hospitality school, universities and teach an events class for an hour. I did so this just in the last 3 or 4 months at Georgia State University in Atlanta. And of course, my alma mater, Michigan State University. And what I do is I say, hey, to these 50 or 60 students, all not even 25% of my age, but it's pretty cool And you try to make sure that you look up at the last row, make sure somebody's not sleeping like I used to do in class. But and so it's fun to engage. But what I tell them is, hey, how many of you have a resume? Raise your hand. So they raise their hand. How many of you have a brand? Tell me what you think the word brand is. A couple people, and I see them on their computers Googling the word brand so that they can sound educated with their answer, right, Eric? And my point is that, hey, a resume is a tracking of what you've done. It's really important. Your CV builds kind of the background of Mary or Tom, whoever the individual is, but you have to think of it as your own personal brand. From the day that I graduated from Michigan State and I had my first job with Sheraton Hotels, the resident manager, a woman by the name of Kathy Ray, pulled me in and said, David, you know what brand is? Yes. And so, I didn't have a tablet to be able to look it up real quick in front of her. But my point is that everything you do builds your personal brand. At the end of the day, it's all about what people think of and have respect for Eric or David or Mary or Susan or Juliet. And it's your personal brand. So I'll stop there and say that, hey, a resume is a resume, a CV is a CV. But when you are interviewing for your next job, for example, the job I have now, on June 1st, after I announced retirement from IE, a gentleman by the name of Mark Johnson tapped me on the shoulder on June 1st. Remember, we do Advocacy Day? And we used to do with MPI meetings, Legislative Action Day, MILAD. Or, you know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
And he said, hey, I met you once, but your reputation precedes yourself. I want to talk to you about coming to work for me. Never met the guy. I think I shook his hand last December at Expo. But my brand that I built over 45 plus years, like you have done, and many listening and watching this podcast, is critical, Eric, to what you're going to do next, or just to keep the credibility of the great job you currently have. Mm-hmm. It's all about personal brand.
That's a wonderful advice. And I would add to that part of your brand is also being yourself, being authentic, because, if not, you need a good memory to remember all the things that you might have said or not. But when you are yourself and you stand for what you believe in, it's much easier. You're not going to please everybody, and you cannot please everyone, but at least people know what you stand for. And those who share the same values will come and be asking you to work with them.
I mean, integrity, honesty. When Eric says, or David says, or Victoria says, here's what we're going to agree to, we're going to do it, here's the time frame, then deliver. And you're going to have bumps in the road, right? But integrity and honesty and credibility is your personal brand.
Absolutely. And I also want to thank you again publicly, because you're one of the person who vouched for me. And I know you regret it since that day, but in all seriousness, when I applied to become an American citizen, I needed to have people, testifying what I've done and recommending me. And you immediately said yes, as many other people, and very thankful for that. But to your point, it's brand is who you are, what you do. Now, you've been in all different association, and each and every one of them, and I met you when you were EVP of the MPI Foundation, you have imprint your management, your way of doing things, and have grown the organization. Do you have a recipe for that?
It's the golden rule, right? Everybody knows what the golden rule is. Treat people the way you want to be treated. And I've been criticized by some of my bosses in the past for not being tough enough. You're too nice. My attitude is, you know what? Whether it's a man or a woman working for or with you, or he or she is your boss, you collaborate, you hold hands, you empower. Before we got on this podcast starting to record this, you and I were reminiscing. And there's a wonderful lady that was director of education for MPI many years ago, 15, 20 years ago, when I was chief operating officer. And I've just rehired her to be my, call it VP of Education, Senior VP of Education, Exhibitor Group, and she starts October 30th. And that's an example of empowerment. She was young, smart, still is young and smart, younger and smarter. And I empowered her, and I've done that, Eric, with many, many staff that have worked for me. That's the magic formula. Set guidelines, set goals, empower. By the way, I'm going to be here when you need me, because we're going to have bumps in the road. We're going to have things that don't work. Oh, darn, I thought this would work. It didn't work. How do we reduce the bleeding? How do we turn this around? And we do this together. I don't think I've ever yelled at anybody that worked for or with me. My wife has yelled at me many times, but
and rightly so.
And rightly so. And my golf partners, Eric, when I miss those putts for to win $5. But my point is empowerment. Be kind. Be a human being. And at the end of the day, good leaders are followed by good friends and good colleagues who work together, whether you're working for somebody or with somebody.
And that's a very important point that you just mentioned. Remind me that recently I was on the bridge between Pennsylvania and New Jersey, between New Hope, Pennsylvania, and Lambertville in New Jersey. In the middle of the bridge, there's a line that separates the two states. And the person I was with remind me that in New Jersey, they have T-shirt that said, "Welcome to New Jersey. Now get the F out." And I start laughing. But my point is, you set the guidelines, you empower people, and then you get the F out of their way and you let them do their job. By the way, if you hire well, they will know better than you to do the job that they're doing. And that's how you build business. I've seen this time and time again, especially with independent business owner. They cannot delegate. They cannot get out of the way, and they are the first roadblock for the growth of their company.
Oh, absolutely. I'm onboarding. I'm in my second week now at Exhibitor Group after 11 wonderful years as part of the leadership team at IAEE, and I've left one dream team, Eric, to build a new dream team, and we just hired our last open position for the Exhibitor Group. Matter of fact, today I am having lunch with that individual because they live in the DFW area. Now there's two of us that live in Texas, and the parent company, Star Exhibits and Environments, is based in Minneapolis. So I do get to go up once a quarter and enjoy the nice winters and/or summers and/or springs up in Minneapolis. But it's a great group to work for. But at the end of the day, you have to build a team. Whether you're on the team, leading the team, and certainly in your world as an entrepreneur and as a business owner. And now I'm working after 30 years, Eric, in a for-profit environment where I actually have some. I had to Google the words profit sharing, because after 30 years in a nonprofit world, I liked it when I got a little bonus, because that world obviously is less financially driven, more mission driven.
Absolutely, and both are very important. But some people will say that you join the dark side of the force. I would say you join life, and there's nothing better. Yeah,
it's exciting, and to work for. This is all due respect to the 4 or 5 organizations, nonprofits that I've worked for, either as the CEO or as a senior executive. To have a board of directors of 15 ladies and gentlemen, all well-intentioned, have a new chairwoman every January, once a year. Now I have one boss. His name is Mark. Hey, Mark, what do you think? Well, what's the business plan? What's the return on investment? How much time is it going to take?
Yep.
Send me a quick little 2-page business plan. I'll give you an answer in 48 hours instead of, why don't we have a task force for 3 months to try to figure this out?
Well,
we move quickly.
Yeah. In some private companies, sometimes you have that. It's called analysis paralysis.
Correct.
But with entrepreneur like Mark, who founded the Exhibitor Group, then you don't have that, which is phenomenal. Now, what are the values you're looking at in building your dream team? What are the values you're looking at in people that you work with?
Once again, because every business is in the service business. If you're selling widgets, if you're a teacher, if you're an entrepreneur like yourself and your colleagues listening into this podcast as independent meeting professionals, business event professionals, we're all in the service business. So we could teach somebody how to block and tackle the logistics, the financials. Maybe they have additional marketing skills that you need, social media skills, technology skills, but you hire attitude first, right? How many times have we heard that? And I tell you, I only have 22 staff on this new dream team. They all have great attitudes. They all know that we're continuing to grow this organization, like everybody on this broadcast, into 2024, which hopefully will be a 100% recovery. I had lunch with a gentleman yesterday in the Dallas-Fort Worth area where I live. And I said, how's business? He said, I'm turning business away. I don't have enough staff.
Yeah.
And the staff I have I'm afraid they're going to burn out. They're working 50, 60 hours a week. And so I'm putting more profit sharing into it so that they feel like they're getting compensated for the additional time. But at the end of the day, you build a dream team from the ground up, whether you have 3 staff or 300 staff, attitude, focus, vision, and get everybody to buy into the vision, sign off on. We use, and I know you're familiar with it, we use a system called Traction, Entrepreneur Operating System.
Yeah.
I know you're very familiar with it. And I used it at IE, and Mark Johnson, our current chairman and owner, is all over it. So we have rocks, and we have, all of your one-on-ones, and, you got all, and, it's a great structure. For those of you not familiar with it, you should look into it. And what's the author's name? Wickerman?
No, Gino Wickman.
Gino Wickman, thank you.
Yeah.
But anyways, I'm not here to pitch that. He's got the book right there, Traction. So, whether you use Traction or any other operating system or project management system, put structure around what you do. If you cannot write it down, put it in a format that you can monitor, whether it's weekly with one-on-ones with your staff or monthly, or in my case, a monthly senior leadership team for the Star Group, which is the parent company that I'm working for. And then I have my own. If you can't measure it, why are you doing it?
Yeah.
Especially in the for-profit world, which probably 95% of the listeners and viewers on this podcast are all about. Nobody ever starts a business to lose money.
No, that's for sure. So, and I agree with you to hire for attitude, have for great people. I do believe that in this day and age and moving forward, more than ever, having a great team will be a critical success factor for any organization, and putting structure into it. So if I understand well, Mark is the visionary and you're the integrator?
Well, Mark is definitely a visionary. Started it 30 years ago. He used to be a golf professional. He could have taught you how to be a better golfer than I am, Eric.
You mean that he could have told me better than you can told me, or?
Well, you still have to have athletic skills. But and then one day he went to a state golf convention where there were 15 or 20 booth stands, and he said, "Wow, these are terrible looking." Fast forward 30 years, he now owns 4 companies in the experiential marketing and stand building, booth building, environmental. One of his biggest clients is Pella, the window company. And for 25 years, he's helped build out 130, 140 of their stores and updates them every 2 years. If you think about it, what's a display when you walk into any retail store? You do the same thing in building up a booth or a stand for a 3-day trade show, except that's temporary. These are a little bit more permanent. So you got to have a vision. So yeah, he's a visionary. He's a very bright businessman. I'm sure I'll share this podcast with him so he hears that I'm bragging on him. But he's a fine gentleman. But he's surrounded himself, Eric, with there's 8 of us on his senior management team, including his for the Star Enterprise. And then I have 22 employees, and I'll have 5 on my senior management team. So everybody builds teams, trust, accountability, and the old saying, "Get her done." Let's go. What are we going to do better today?
Awesome. Yeah, trying to do a little bit better today than you did yesterday. That's awesome. What do you see coming up in the industry, David? You've obviously had an amazing view of what was happening when you were at the helm of IAEE. You're now with the Star Group, the Exhibitor Group. What should people be preparing for, let's say, in the next 2 years?
Well, I was on a call yesterday, Eric, with 7 ladies and gentlemen, leaders in the business events industry, with a focus on exhibitions And then a good friend like Brad Main, who runs the Venue Management Association, which is all the convention centers and arenas and stadiums. And the number one topic that we focused on, it was an hour call. We ran out of time like you always do, is workforce development. How do we get into high schools? How do we get into colleges? How do we get into recruiting? There are over 1 million open jobs in the hospitality industry, all inclusive, not just hotels and restaurants, in the United States today. 1 million jobs. And what I think in the entire United States, it's maybe 3 or 4 million open jobs. So maybe a third of the jobs that are open in hospitality. So how do we get ladies and gentlemen at all ages? By the way, you don't, as you and I know, you don't, and everybody listening and watching in, you don't have to have a college education to be successful in our industry, in the business events industry. You've got to be smart. You got to be committed. You've got to enjoy working with people and having successful events that drive communities, that drive return on investment. In the trade show industry, we're all about buying and selling, whether it's a consumer show, like a Comic-Con or a beauty show or a garden show, or, I live in Texas, a gun show, or it's Consumer Electronics Show or the National Association of Broadcasters or the Association of Equipment Manufacturers. There's a trade show for everything. Back in the day, when I worked at the Dearborn Inn, my mother said, "I'm coming over to your hotel, David." I said, "Why, Mom?" He said, "I'm attending a ceramic toothpick holders convention." I said, "Mom, there's such a thing?" "Yeah, it's in your ballroom." My mother loved making ceramics.
Wow.
And this is a ceramics convention. 20 or 30 tabletops, you know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. So my point is that we have a big challenge, and everybody in the business world has a big challenge throughout the world on workforce development. So I'll just say that that's a huge focus for all of us. Our friends at MPI, PCMA, IE, CISO, Destinations International, the list goes on and on and on. All the organizations that the alphabet's soup that you and I know of and have lots of friends in. Workforce development, high priority. So how are we getting into high schools? How are we getting into colleges? So we're building a more extensive outreach program, Eric.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And also, I would like to ask you some of your thought about AI when it comes to the work within the Exhibitor Group, but also with your clients. And a few weeks ago, through EO Entrepreneurs Organization, I was able to listen to Yuval Noah Harari, the guy who wrote *Sapiens*, *Amadeus*, and all those books, a big thinker. And he said something very interesting. He said in the past, everybody's always been scared of technology, a little bit like your point earlier on about the internet. But, you adapt. But at the end of the day, whatever the technology, men were deciding on it. And he gave the example of the nuclear bomb. The nuclear bomb didn't decide to explode itself. It's human beings who decided. And he said, here today, we have a moment in mankind history where actually the machine can be deciding. So that is obviously a more philosophical or ethical question. But there is no doubt in my mind that if you don't use AI today, and if you don't look at ways of using AI, you're going to be losing in your business. So how do you use AI internally, and how do you see it impacting the industry?
Well, obviously, it depends on your source of information. Some ladies and gentlemen out there are telling us to be really careful about AI because it may mislead you to make decisions that humans may have made a different decision. My personal take on it, and I'm not an AI expert by any means, because going back just 2 weeks ago when I was CEO of the International Association of Exhibitions and Events, and our board challenged myself and Kathy Breeden, the COO, and others, Marsha Flanagan, who we've got to be the leader in AI and cutting edge. So wait a minute, there's billions and billions of dollars being spent. We have to be the leader in AI education. We have to provide at Expo or our friends at MPI or PCMA and certainly ourselves at the Exhibitor Group, because we run a convention every February for 2,500 to 3,500 folks in the exhibition exhibitor world. And we've got 6 sessions on AI out of 90 sessions that will provide good education with all due respect, Eric, ladies and gentlemen smarter than you and I about AI that are going to give, well, maybe not you, definitely me, are going to give 45-minute session and just give enough information for those attendees, those 30 or 40 or 50 people in the session, to be able to say, hey, I need to know how to do this. To your point earlier, if you don't embrace it, everything's going to pass you by. So you've got to have a nice balance, right, Eric, of human intelligence and machine intelligence. And at the end of the day, how have we been successful in our lives? You go with your gut after you analyze all the data, whether it's machine driven through AI inquiries, or whether it's 3 of you sitting around a room brainstorming for an hour, thinking about the future of your business or your vision of your business or your mission of your business. And then what's the next quote unquote category that you're going to create? You know, how many years ago Airbnb didn't exist? Lyft and Uber didn't exist. Those are new categories. And think about the billions of value, financial value that they have now. So embrace AI, get to know it. Don't put 100% of your decisions behind it. Have a hybrid approach like we do in business events, where you have an in-person and a hybrid, so we can expand our community's engagement 365 days a year.
Great point. Somebody was telling me that before looking for artificial intelligence, we should first look for human intelligence, which is interesting.
Yeah, did they call you?
No, precisely. What other technology do you see as well? How is the exhibition world changing that people should be aware of and look at those technology to be able to use them?
Well, Eric, I'm going to stretch your mind a little bit because you're a few months younger than me. Experiential marketing has been around for decades. Do you remember a guy named Jim Gilmore? The experience economy.
Yep.
Okay, so some of the people on this podcast listening and watching will Google Jim Gilmore. The Exhibitor Group just hired Jim Gilmore as a full-time consultant, not a full-time, a part-time consultant, partial consultant, to help us expand and grow and enhance the experience at our own show called Exhibitor Live, which, a little plug, will be the end of February 2024 at the Gaylord Opryland in Nashville. ExhibitorOnline.com. I had to do that. But that's an example of, think about it, 25 plus years ago, Jim Gilmore, and I can't remember his author partner, wrote a book and was one of the hottest speakers on the circuit. And he's still doing consulting. He's still very relevant. He's obviously had to enhance what he does and bring in AI and other technologies that are important. But at the end of the day, what you do at a trade show, an incentive trip, a business meeting, a consumer show, especially the younger folks and us older folks, myself, and you a little younger, we want to walk out of there after 2 days and go, that was fabulous. I learned a lot. I got some new business leads, and I had an incredible experience. I can't wait to go back there to that in-person event and engage in that community, whether it's an association or a for-profit trade show or business event or incentive trip. It's all about experiences. What are incentive trips, Eric? They're all about experiences. Thank you for having a great year and being a top performer. Now we're going to give you an awesome experience, whether it's in country A, city B, or golf course C.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. And to your point on the incentives, I've been running a lot of incentive trip in over 50 countries in the world. I was always stunned when I hear about other people going to what they call an incentive trip, where they just been put in a beautiful hotel in a beautiful island, and that's it. That's not an experience. That's not something that they cannot experience without their company. So to your point, it's very important to design the greater experience. David, I could, as you know, and as a lot of people know, I could spend hours smoking a cigar and listening to you.
And we have.
Right. And we will. but the podcast format doesn't allow that, unfortunately. So let me ask you a last question for today. When we see each other in 1 year with a bottle of champagne and a cigar, what are we going to celebrate?
You know, Eric, we're going to celebrate our families. You have 4 beautiful women in your life, your day-to-day life with your wife and 3 girls. Nancy and I have 3 kids and 6 grandkids now, 4 little girls and 2 little boys. And you know what? A year from now, we're going to toast each other. We're going to say, hey, we're still healthy. We have successful businesses. Most importantly, we have wonderful, loving, successful family engagements. And we have lots of friends. And by the way, let's hit restart and do it one more time until, I was going to retire. I think you know this. In April of 2023, I announced my retirement from IAE. And then in July, I said, just kidding. So I'm kind of like the Tom Brady of the exhibition industry. Just kidding. I'm not really retiring. But when I do retire, I'll probably be a starter or a marshal at my golf course and hang around with Nancy and the grandkids and my kids and hang out with you from time to time and toast with a glass of champagne and say, you know what? Let's do it one more year.
Awesome. I'll drink to that. And I think I'm going to call this episode of the podcast Re-Tired.
You're right. Just kidding.
Thank you, David. Have a great day, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks, everybody, for listening and watching in. Take care, Eric.
David, merci beaucoup for your time and for sharing your insights. Always a great pleasure to speak with you, my friend. If you want to connect with me, ladies and gentlemen, please reach out on LinkedIn or join the Facebook group www.eventbusinessformula.com/group. And if you enjoyed this conversation, please share it with your network. Thank you. Bye-bye.